a survey that was done on Gen Z and millennials about how they like to travel. It was done by American Express. It is, if you're watching this on YouTube, you probably see it on screen right now. It's called the American Express Travel 2023 Global Travel Trends Report. Basically, American Express, which is one of the more popular credit card companies out there, basically did a survey on those who use its credit cards about how they plan to travel, why they travel, how they choose destinations to travel to, and all these things within the report. And I just found a little snippet, a little segment of the report very interesting, and I wanted to share that segment with you guys. So in what it calls the rise of set jetting, I just found this little snippet very, very interesting. It said that 75% of respondents have been inspired by social media to travel to a specific destination. And then it says 64% of respondents agree that they have been inspired to travel to a destination after seeing it featured on a TV show or a news source or a movie. This doesn't come as too surprising because as much as we like to think like, oh my God, I'm so original, that's BS. We are extremely influenced by everything around us. So it's not too surprising. And usually when we're trying to figure out where would I even want to go, there's so many places to go, we go based on the recommendations we see. However, there was one takeaway that completely blew my mind. That completely blew my mind. But before we get to that takeaway, there was one other thing that I found really, really interesting. It says, you know how we just talked about 75% of people say they're inspired by social media. However, here's something interesting. 68% of respondents agreed that they pride themselves on finding lesser known vacation spots before they become popular. Those two numbers don't compute in my mind. It doesn't make sense. If you pride yourself on finding lesser known vacation spots, but yet you're taking most of your inspiration from social media, something is off, in my opinion. Something is definitely off because if you pride yourself on trying to find secret spots, you're going to do a lot more research outside of social media. Maybe that's why the number is reduced a little bit from 75% to 68% on those who actually pride themselves in finding those spots. But I just find it so interesting that yet it's still 75% of people that take recommendations from social media. Okay, real background on me. I'm not a big travel guy. Travel has never been like a massive thing for me. The only time I travel is to go see family. I'm not trying to travel to a destination just because I'm not Mr. Travel guy or anything like that. That's my sister. She loves to travel. She makes all the travel stuff. I'm just the guy that just, I'll go with anybody to enjoy their presence and their company. But for me personally, I don't like to travel. So there is that bias that you have to think about when I'm entering this topic. But regardless, the biggest takeaway for me when I was reading this was this. 48% of respondents say they want to travel somewhere so they can show off on social media. When I read that, I was like, damn, it was shocking for me to read this. And it reminded me of a quote that I heard. I still haven't seen this movie, from Fight Club, but it's a quote that I think encapsulates how we think in society today, especially when it comes to our finances and when it comes to life in general. The quote from Fight Club says, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like." I took that quote and I said, let me massage it a little bit for what is actually going on for us. That quote that I like to say is, we buy things we don't need or want with money we barely have to impress people we don't know and we probably will never meet and we definitely do not like. This is where we are as a society. This is what we do. Keeping up with the Joneses, but now on a global stage. Where we compare ourselves not just to those people right next to us, but we compare ourselves to people across the globe. We buy things or do things we don't have or we don't need with money we don't have or maybe barely have to impress people we don't even know. Or dare I say, even like. Or people will probably never, ever meet. But that's what we do. 48% of respondents say that they want to travel somewhere they can show off on social media. 48%. I just wanted to share this with everybody because I think it's very important for us to be very alert about the things that we say that we want. I think it's very important for us to be very alert about the things we say we aspire to. We need to be very alert about the things that we say, this is what I want my life to look like. We have to ask ourselves the question, does this thing actually bring me joy? Is this thing the thing that actually will make me happy? Or is this just another veneer for me to hide behind? You see, a lot of times we think happiness will be found in places or in the things that we buy. The truth is, happiness is not found in a place or in a thing. It is found with the people that we are around. And so the question, and sometimes the hard question is, are we around the right people? And I don't just mean like physically around the right people. It's also, are we influencing ourselves with the right kind of influences? When it comes to the media that we intake, when it comes to the social media channels that we follow, or the pages that we follow, are we inundating ourselves properly to bring actual joy to our lives? It's interesting the amount of people, honestly, that think that it's the fancy dinner or the fancy going out to bars or the fancy vacation that is the thing that's actually bringing them happiness, when in the reality of it is the company of being with the loved ones around you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't do the fancy stuff. I'm not saying don't take your fancy vacations or your fancy dinners and all that stuff. But I'm saying, ask yourself, why do I need this fancy dinner? Is it just so I can take a picture of it and post it on Instagram and be like, yo guys, look at what I'm doing? Or is it because you actually want to be doing those things? And then the other question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the influence around us? What are the people around us saying? What are the people around us sharing? What are the people around us making us believe is important? What are the people around us making us believe like this is how I get to where I want to be? What are the people making us create expectations for? Because I loved another quote that this is from Morgan Housel. As you guys know, that's my favorite author. He said, if your expectations grow faster than your income, you'll never be happy with your money, no matter how much you accumulate. So the question is, are we setting ourselves up for failure? Because we look around us, we look on social media, we hear the things that some of our friends are able to do at the point of life that they are in. We don't know the full picture of how they're able to do it. And we start setting these expectations for ourselves. And every time we even hit some of those expectations, we see another expectation we gotta reach. And then we never hit that place where we're actually happy because all the influences around us. And the worst part about it is this survey was done by American Express. American Express understanding this means they can market to you better. These companies understand this, and so they market to us even better. They sell to us, and then they drain us by making us feel less than. By making us feel like the only way you can get happiness is by buying our product. What is that Coke commercial? Open happiness? By buying our product. I'll close things out with this quote from Robert Schiller. He said, you have to realize your thoughts are not really your own thoughts. They percolate in from other places and from other people. We have to ask ourselves the hard questions. We have to ask ourselves, why am I making this decision? Am I making it for me, or am I making it to impress other people? Am I doing this thing just so I can post one picture on social media that everyone is going to forget about? That's the worst part. What is that? Your story appears for 24 hours and it disappears? If you post something on your feed, it doesn't even show up for most people anyway. Are we just posting for likes that are so fleeting? We spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars just to post? We gotta live for more. We've got to live for more. And we have to be conscious of the things that are influencing us. We have to be conscious of the people that we allow into our lives that influence us. We have to be careful of what it is that we're listening to, what it is that we're watching, what it is that we're reading, what it is that we're allowing to speak into our hearts. We have to be very mindful of that. We have to ask the question, do I actually need this in my life? Do I need to hear this where now I set an expectation and set myself up for failure? I love this quote from David Jacoby. He always says, happiness is the result of realistic expectations. Combining that with this quote from Morgan Housel, if your expectations continue to exceed your income, you will never, ever be happy. Never be happy. And so we got to ask ourselves some hard questions. And that hard question boils down to one. Who are you living for? Who are you living for? Are you living for yourself? Are you living for your parents? Are you living for your friends? Are you living for social media? Who are you living for? Because until we can be honest with ourselves about what it is that we expect and what it is that we're chasing after, if we're not honest with ourselves about this, we will never have true happiness. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this. Are we going to live by a rule set that we create for ourselves? Or are we going to live by a default that society and culture tells us to live to? Will we choose what will influence us, or will we allow ourselves to be passively influenced by everything else? Because as they say, if you don't believe in something, the world will give you something to believe in. But anyway, that's all I got for y'all this time around. I hope y'all learned one, maybe two things out of this entire thing. And if you did, hit that like button if you're watching this on YouTube. If you loved it, hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, share this podcast with one person that you love, one person that you hate, one person you're just kind of like about. And by that time, you would have shared it with every single person that you know. But anyways, being your boy Kelechi, share this podcast, leave a review. I'm going to catch you up on the next one. Remember, generosity is always greater than greed. God bless each and every single one of y'all. And your boy's out of here. Peace.